Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a really fascinating journey to explore the connection between our understanding of the brain, that's cognitive neuroscience, and how we approach teaching and learning, which is, educational psychology.
Yeah, and we're looking at it through the lens of Dale H. Chunk's perspective, specifically his analysis of an article by Burns and Fox.
Right, so Burns and Fox had these pretty significant ideas about how brain science should inform education.
Exactly. And Chunk's work helps us sort through it, what holds up, what needs maybe a bit more nuance.
So for you listening, our mission today is basically to unpack this relationship. Where do neuroscience and educational psychology agree? Where do they differ?
And crucially, why does any of this matter? For educators, for learners, for you.
Okay, let's dive in. First up is this idea of consistency.
Right. Burns and Fox argue pretty strongly that our educational theories, especially about learning and motivation, they really need to line up with what cognitive neuroscience tells us about the brain.
Makes sense. It should be grounded in the biology, right?
They believe it's fundamental, yeah, for a solid understanding.
And Shunk is, well, he's definitely on board with this general idea. He even points out that educational psychology sometimes has its own internal inconsistencies.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, he mentions information processing theories. Some older models suggested, step-by-step sequential processing.
Like a single file line?
Exactly. But current research, including from neuroscience, shows it's much more simultaneous. Different brain areas working in parallel.
Mm-hmm. More like a busy workshop than a queue. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And Chunk also notes how neuroscience helps clarify that distinction between domain-specific skills
Like specific subject knowledge.
and more general cognitive processes, like problem solving, that we use across different areas.
Right, and while educational psychology has talked about this, neuroscience is kind of pushing for clearer categories, which is useful.
Definitely useful. Okay, but here's where it gets a bit tricky. Just because we find something out about the brain, does that mean we automatically know how to teach based on it?
Ah, yes, the translation problem. Burns and Fox definitely wave a big caution flag here.
They really do. They warn against just taking a neuroscience finding and slapping it onto a classroom activity.
Yeah, the risk of oversimplification or just plain misapplication is pretty high.
And Shunk uses that perfect example, the whole right brain, left brain thing.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
That idea really took hold in education for a while, didn't it?
totally. This notion that you're either right-brained creative or left-brained logical, and teachers should cater to that.
Right, so visuals for the righties, verbal stuff for the lefties.
But Shunk points out, and he's citing Hahn here, that while there's some specialization, most complex tasks involve, well, lots of brain areas working together.
It's way more integrated. That simple split just doesn't match the reality of how the brain functions.
Exactly. So the takeaway isn't really about dominant hemispheres.
No, it's that good teaching probably engages multiple areas anyway.
But, as Shunk wisely adds, this doesn't mean we should just ditch using different ways to present information.
No, absolutely not. Using visuals, verbal explanations, hands-on stuff that's just good pedagogy, it helps reach more learners.
It makes sense regardless of brain lateralization theories. It's about accessibility and different learning preferences.
Precisely. Sound teaching principles, not flimsy neuromyths. Okay, so Burns and Fox also stress that educators should, actually be aware of neuroscience research.
Yeah, they argue that if your job involves understanding learning, you should have some basic knowledge of the brain. Seems logical.
But they also note the reality that many teachers just don't get much exposure to it during their training.
Right. It's often not in the textbooks, maybe not covered in methods courses.
And Shunk agrees. He mentions reasons like packed curricula, instructors maybe not having the neuroscience background themselves.
Or maybe a perception that it's not directly relevant for day-to-day teaching.
So Chunk sees the benefit for educational psychologists to have a basic understanding, but always with those cautions from Burns and Fox in mind. Don't jump to conclusions.
Right. Build the bridge, but build it carefully. Okay, moving on. Another thing Burns and Fox highlight is neuroscience's strong focus on development.
Yes, they see that as a real strength. Neuroscience inherently looks at how the brain changes over time, grows, matures.
Which is obviously super relevant for education. And Shunk supports this, but he adds a critical point about teacher training.
That's okay.
He notes that development courses and teaching methods courses are often taught completely separately.
Ah, right. Like Child psychology is over here, and how to teach reading is over there, maybe even in different departments.
Exactly. So future teachers might struggle to connect the dots. How does a 6-year-old's developing brain actually impact how they learn fractions, for example?
Yeah, you need to integrate that understanding. How developmental stage influences learning capacity and processing. Makes total sense.
And this leads right into the importance of early education.
Shunk emphasizes that neuroscience really underlines how critical those early years are for brain development, for laying foundations.
But interestingly, he notes that a lot of the learning and motivation research tends to focus more on K-12.
Yeah, comparatively less on preschool. He suggests more research there could really help us understand this idea of readiness.
Readiness, like when kids are supposedly ready for formal instruction.
Exactly. And Shunk connects this to Bruner's famous idea.
Oh, the one about teaching any subject to any child at any stage.
Right, but Shunk clarifies that Bruner's point has often been misinterpreted. It wasn't about pushing calculus on toddlers.
No, it was more about the curriculum, right? Introducing core concepts simply early on and then revisiting them with more complexity later.
Exactly, the spiral curriculum. Finding age-appropriate ways to teach fundamental ideas, not just waiting for some magical readiness point.
So Chunk argues neuroscience gives us a strong reason to really invest more research effort into understanding those very young learners.
hmm What are they capable of, and how does the brain support that? Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Burns and Fox also talked about limitations, and Shunk has some counterpoints. Let's start with contemporary learning theories.
Right. Burns and Fox made this pretty bold claim that only Adams's reading theory really aligned well with neuroscience.
Which seems limiting, and Shunk definitely pushes back on that.
Yeah, he highlights other major theories he sees as quite consistent with the complexity neuroscience reveals.
Like whose?
Well, Bandura's social cognitive theory, for one, that whole interplay between thoughts, behavior, environment, very dynamic.
Right, fits with the brain being a complex, interactive system.
And Pinterach's work on how cognitive strategies and motivational factors like goals and beliefs work together during learning.
Uh-huh. Shunk also mentions his own research looking at how teaching methods interact with student characteristics.
Yeah.
It's not simple stimulus response.
Definitely not. He also touches on that neuroscience distinction between wanting and liking and motivation.
Oh yeah, the dopamine pathways for seeking reward versus the pleasure centers for experiencing it.
Right. And he contrasts that with cognitive theories that often focus more on the value of a goal, the satisfaction of making progress, even if the immediate task isn't, wildly fun.
Which just underscores, again, the need for dialogue between the fields. They offer different, potentially complementary perspectives on motivation.
Absolutely. Okay, next point. Domain general versus domain-specific processes again.
Burns and Fox see that distinction as useful, coming from neuroscience.
But Chunk adds a layer of complexity. He argues that in actual learning, those lines get pretty blurry.
How so?
Well, think about cognitive processes like planning or motivational ones like setting goals. They seem to operate similarly whether you're learning history or physics.
Yeah, makes sense.
He uses reading and math reasoning as examples. They seem domain-specific.
But reading is fundamental literacy needed everywhere.
Exactly. And mathematical reasoning skills. They apply way beyond just math class, problem-solving, logic.
So the skills might seem specific, but their application and the underlying cognitive processes might be more general or transferable than the labels suggest.
Right, it's more interconnected. Now, something Shunk feels neuroscience might overlook sometimes. Student beliefs.
Ah, yes. Self-efficacy and things like that.
Exactly. He argues that neuroscience's focus on the cognitive nuts and bolts can sometimes miss the huge impact of what students believe about their own abilities.
And he brings up self-efficacy, that belief in your capacity to succeed. The research shows it's a powerful predictor of achievement, right?
Hugely powerful, sometimes even more predictive than past performance. It's about believing you can do it.
And it's not static. Shunk's research showed things like seeing similar peers succeed
Or just experiencing success yourself.
can actually boost your self-efficacy, which then fuels more achievement. It's a positive feedback loop.
It really highlights the power of mindset. And Shunk suggests, interestingly, that neuroscience methods could actually help us understand how these beliefs and cognitive skills interact in the brain.
Like mapping the neural correlates of high versus low self-efficacy during a task.
Potentially, yeah. Merging those perspectives. Okay, one last major area Shunk emphasizes, self-regulation.
Super important in modern learning theories. This is about students actively managing their own learning, right?
Exactly. Directing their thoughts, managing emotions, choosing strategies, monitoring progress, all towards achieving their goals.
It's a big shift from older, more behaviorist views
Yeah.
where the student was seen as more passive.
Totally. Now we understand learners as active agents, constructing their understanding, controlling their motivation.
And Shunk notes there's been a huge growth in educational research on self-regulation.
Right. And he sees potential for neuroscience to really shed light on the brain processes underlying these self-regulatory activities during learning.
How does the brain handle goal setting, monitoring, adjusting strategies in real time? Lots to explore there.
Definitely. So, wrapping up this deep dive, drawing on Shunk's analysis of Burns and Fox, it's clear there's a strong case for aligning educational theory with neuroscience.
But with major caveats about direct, simplistic application. Caution is needed.
And educators benefit from a foundational awareness alongside understanding developmental processes, especially in early childhood.
We also saw the ongoing dialogue about how existing learning theories fit, the nuances of domain specificity, the vital role of student beliefs like self-efficacy.
And the importance of self-regulation as an active process.
It's a complex picture, but a fascinating one.
It really is. And that leads us to our final thought for you to consider. Given everything we know about the brain's complexity and how multifaceted learning is, what do you think is the most crucial bridge that still needs to be built between cognitive neuroscience and actual classroom practice to really optimize learning for everyone?
Hmm, that's a big question. How do we translate the depth of neuroscience into practical, effective strategies without losing the nuance or falling into those traps we discussed?
Yeah, think about your own learning or any educational context you know. Where's the biggest gap or the biggest potential connection still waiting to be made? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.